Let us welcome in, for more on all of this, our good friend, Newsmax TV political analyst and presidential strategist, Dick Morris. Of course, Dick is the co-author of the best-selling book, Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation. As always, Dick, we appreciate your time here on Newsmax Prime. And I made mention of the fact that it was Paul Ryan tweeting out his endorsement earlier, so I guess it makes sense that Donald Trump likewise responds via Twitter. Here's the statement he tweeted: "So great to have the endorsement and support of Paul Ryan. We will both be working very hard to make America great again." So Ryan is about a month shy of getting to the party after thinking it over and taking on some damage in terms of his esteem and in terms of his status with his fellow Republicans.
Trump could have added to the tweet. I would tweet more about what I think of you, but there's a 160 character limit on tweets.
Well, now it's one big unified party, or is it? I mean, now with the speaker getting on board, we know Trump is the presumptive nominee, but the inevitability of most Republicans lining up under the banner and the standard bearer seems to me to be academic. What about you?
Well, I think they all will. And I think Ryan was somewhere off by himself, and I don't think he really spoke for a significant segment of the party. In fact, it's notable how quickly the opposition to Trump evaporated. Once Cruz pulled out and Kasich pulled out, everybody went home. And whereas the opposition to Hillary has lingered and stayed on and will undoubtedly spill over into the convention, everybody seems more or less united behind Trump. The polling shows he gets 80+% of the Republican vote, what he should do, maybe up to 90. And I think Ryan was just kind of out there as yesterday's news.
Our first call tonight, Dick, at 1-877-NEWSMAX comes from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Martin is on the line. Martin, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Hey, Martin.
Hi,
how are you doing?
Love your real news program. Doing a great job.
Thank you, sir.
In my opinion, Ryan is as irrelevant now as Romney and Crystal are, and even Biden is.
That's about right. Yeah, you're about right about that. Let's understand that Ryan was not selected because he has this huge power base. He was selected because he's the only, first of all, he has a brain, and relatively few Republican House members do.
Oh, now wait a minute. I can't let you go with that, Dick. That's not true.
Come on. What I mean is Ryan is clearly the smartest member of the House.
He's a policy wonk, but it's not based on it. He's a policy wonk. That I'll accept. Go ahead.
He's the smartest member of the House of Representatives.
Oh, gee. Okay, go ahead.
Held by Newt Gingrich. So that's why he's there. He's also there because he's the only guy who, because of his brains, is acceptable to the Tea Party and acceptable to the leadership.
Now you need another amendment. As I have explained before, and as I explained at the outset of this program, he is no longer acceptable to the Tea Party. His open borders stance has killed him with the Tea Party. So that part of the equation, with all due respect, is inaccurate.
Yeah, but he's still Speaker. They're not dumping him, and they don't have to love him. But the point is, he doesn't have a power base. And therefore he is basically an irrelevant figure at this point. Once the election is held and the Republicans hopefully keep a majority in the House and he's able to get the votes to be reelected Speaker, then he'll be relevant again. And he was relevant before Trump wrapped it up, when it looked like he might run. But right now it's kind of yesterday's news.
All right. Well, we've got more comments from today and from tonight specifically, Dick. Again to the phones at 1-877-NEWSMAX for my old Arizona stomping grounds, a city I was honored to represent, at least partially, during my time in the Congress. Mesa, Arizona is where we find Tom tonight. Tom, what's your take on all of this?
Hey, Tom. How are you doing?
Entertaining again. Man, it's hot in Arizona.
It's great to have you, sir.
Brian on the sidewalk.
He's done. The Speaker of the House is done. I have a question. Can Hillary pick a Republican for a VP?
Well, that's a very good question. What about that, Dick?
No, she won't. Because her problem really is not with the Republican Party, it's with the left of the Democratic Party. She is the conservative candidate of the Democratic Party de facto at this point, kind of stretching things to make her the right wing of anything, but she is. And what she has to do now is to choose a vice president that is a nod toward the Sanders wing of the party. So Elizabeth Warren comes to mind, and a number of other possible candidates. But she won't want to move to the right in choosing a VP. She'll need to move to the left.
And when she moves to the left, you mentioned obviously Elizabeth Warren, but anybody else out there on the Morris radar, Deval Patrick, who else skews far enough to the left to be acceptable to the Sanders wing of the party, Dick?
Well, a lot of that will depend on who Trump nominates, because Trump comes the week before Hillary. And if Trump nominates for example, a black or a Latino, Hillary may be obliged to follow suit, in which case you might look at Deval Patrick or Cory Booker from New Jersey. But otherwise, just in terms of white Democrats, probably the single most liberal member of the U.S. Senate, other than Bernie Sanders, is Sherrod Brown of Ohio. And they've been talking a lot about him, and I think that might be a good choice for Hillary.
That would be interesting, and obviously Ohio figures prominently in the battle for electoral votes. Now back out to California, and you and I talked about this earlier this week. You think Sanders is going to win there. Let's take a look at the field poll, because Field has been out in the field, and they have it basically neck and neck. Hillary at 45%, Bernie at 43%, within the margin of error. Other polls showing a 2-point difference. Nothing has changed your analysis from the other night, Dick. You believe Bernie Sanders will carry California in next week's primary?
Well, it's hard to predict this a week in advance, but he certainly has momentum. In the open primaries, we've been finding that Sanders does better than he polls, because there are a lot of people who are not normally Democrats. They're independents, and they haven't really decided to vote in the Democratic primary. But if they did, they would vote for Sanders. And when the pollster calls them up, they say, well, I don't think I'm going to vote in the primary. But then they turn out and do it, and they vote. So among the habitual Democratic primary year after year vote, Hillary has a lead. But among the independents who might waltz in and waltz out, Sanders does better. So if he's only 2 behind, I think he's got a chance to win the primary in California. And the effect of that will be to show Hillary's weakness. And you could have a perfect storm, JD, of Hillary losing California and South Dakota and North Dakota and maybe New Mexico.
Wow. You know, as you point this out, Dick, we're caught by the clock. But when we come back, we will talk more about that and more about other subjects involving California and much more politically with Dick Morris as Newsmax Prime continues. Welcome back, and as we eagerly await your videos on Sound Off on Newsmax Prime, we can tell you you can sound off in terms of telephone calls during the program tonight at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. And we talked about this a bit last night. Newsmax TV hosting a very special conversation with some trusted members of our Newsmax community. John Bachman spoke to that group about several topics, including Donald Trump's continued criticism of some fellow Republicans.
Here are some clips of Donald Trump taking on those folks. Let's take a listen.
No, Jeb hasn't done it yet. He will get a burst of energy and he will do it, believe me. Tell you. Needs a little more energy. And he walks like a penguin onto the stage. You ever seen? Like a penguin. Since 2000, the number of people on food stamps in New Mexico has tripled. We have to get your governor to get going. She's got to do a better job, okay?
All right, so in the second and third clip, he's talking about Mitt Romney, who apparently walks like a penguin. I've never seen it myself, but Donald Trump thinks so. And Susana Martinez, the very popular governor of New Mexico, not necessarily in Trump's corner at this point. Debbie, do you think it's smart for Donald Trump to publicly criticize and attack the people that he needs to support him?
It goes back to your counterpunch. I mean, they start with him and he retaliates. Is it the best move? No, that sometimes less is more.
Carrie, Jeb Bush lost, obviously. Mitt Romney tried to come out publicly and stop Donald Trump. He's still probably trying to stop him somewhat. He was kind of embarrassed. Why would Donald Trump continue to go there on these two? It's basically
squash
settled.
them. He's going to squash them so they don't dare mess with them. I mean, he's tough, and I love that about him.
Throughout the campaign, Donald Trump has been talking about this crooked system. Here are some of those sound bites.
We have a system that's rigged. We have a system that's crooked. We have a system that's got a lot of problems. And we have a system that doesn't allow the people to vote in many cases. And if they do vote, their vote isn't really representative of what it should be. No, it's a crooked game. Folks, it's a rigged system, believe me. It's a rig.
When you look at a guy who's winning, Peter, you normally don't hear the guy who's winning complaining about the process. Does this make Trump sound like a whiner?
Yeah, a little bit, because if it was a rigged game for the Republicans, he wouldn't be the nominee. He's the nominee because the people spoke and the people's votes counted, and now he's the nominee. If you want a rigged system, go to the Democrat side, then you'll see a rigged system.
I think he's tactically doing that on purpose with the Bernie supporters. He's letting them know it's a rigged system and come with me after it's all done. We have a home for you. We'll embrace you. We'll take you in, and he gets the votes and takes it away from Hillary. Because I don't think all the Bernie supporters are actually Hillary supporters as well when it's all said and done.
Peter, tell me why you're excited to vote for president.
When Trump wins and he governs like a Republican, he's going to revolutionize the Republican Party and this country, and we'll be back on track.
All right, so there you go, JD. We'll have much more with our focus group. We'll ask them some more questions about Hillary Clinton's email scandal and some other issues, how those will impact the general election coming up tomorrow, starting at 6 p.m. during Hardline. Back to you.
All right, John, thanks very much. Let's continue our conversation with Newsmax TV political analyst and presidential strategist Dick Morris. Of course, Dick, co-author of the bestseller Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation. Dick, you heard those voters talking to John Bogman. I'm just struck by the fact that Donald Trump is the disruptor. Even in criticizing fellow Republicans, it seems that he gets a pass.
Well, I think Trump is learning from the mistakes that Ted Cruz made. Cruz was the anti-establishment candidate. He was the guy everybody in the Senate hated because he told the truth and he stood up against Obamacare. Then after Bush dropped out and Christie dropped out and Rubio lost, all of the establishment went to Cruz. And Cruz stopped criticizing them, stopped knocking the people who were coming to back him. And all of a sudden, he looked like the establishment. And Trump was able to beat him on that basis. And I think what Trump is doing is continuing to show himself to be the angry young man, the man outside, the person castigating the system, even as he wins the system. And I think it's a pretty shrewd move.
Yeah, instead of being the odd man out, he's the popular man out, and he seems to be portraying that he is the voice of the people. Now, Dick, Michael Reagan was here last night, and he said, wait a minute, Republicans, don't be too excited if Hillary gets indicted because there is the prospect out there of Joe Biden. Here's the way Michael put it last night.
About a year ago, I told you that the Republicans better wish or not wish that Hillary is indicted, because if she is indicted, Joe Biden will jump in and Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States of America. And that still holds true. If she's indicted, he will find a way to get in, and he will find a coronation at the Democrat convention. And I will tell you here and now, he will be the next president of the United States.
Dick, do you agree with Michael Reagan and his assessment?
Well, I think it certainly is possible. Let me walk through the math a little bit. I don't think Hillary is going to get indicted. I don't think Obama will let that happen. But if she loses California and she has that rough inspector general report under her belt, and the Benghazi committee comes out and excoriates her, and the FBI issues a report that maybe recommends an indictment and the attorney general doesn't follow through on it, and it sits out there that she's guilty and should be punished, all of that will result in polling that will show Trump beating Hillary and maybe Biden beating Trump. And at that point, the delegates begin to squirm and get restless. Now, with the primaries ending on Tuesday this coming week, there are 761 delegates remaining to be selected. And assuming they divide them up pretty evenly, Bernie and Hillary, because it's proportional representation. Even though Hillary may lose the primaries, Bernie will get a lot of votes. Hillary at that point will still be 200 to 300 votes short of what she needs to win the nomination. And she'll have to get those votes from the 712 superdelegates, some of whom are committed to supporting her already, but that doesn't mean anything. They can change their minds in a heartbeat. They're basically up for grabs. And at that point, Biden could float his availability, and you could begin to see dozens and then hundreds of those superdelegates saying, we're going to vote for Biden on the first ballot. And that could be enough to deny Hillary the 200 to 300 votes extra she needs from the superdelegates to win on the first ballot. And on the second ballot, everybody's freed of their commitments and all hell could break loose. So that's a scenario that could happen.
Well, it is quite intriguing, and we appreciate you putting it out there for us. Let's go back to the telephones at 1-877-Newsmax to Grove, Oklahoma for Brenda. Hi, Brenda.
Hi, this is Brenda from Oklahoma.
Great to have you.
You actually almost just answered my question. What Michael Reagan said last night about Biden and about the Republicans voting for him so they didn't have to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
That scared me to death. I mean, don't they understand how serious this is? We voted the Republicans in, and they haven't done anything for us. And I will tell you, I'm a Christian, and I hate what's going on in this nation anyway. But, well, anyway.
Well, we hear your frustration, Brenda, and I think you've made a couple of valid points. And one thing we really didn't touch on that Brenda brought up here, Dick, is the fact that Michael Reagan went on to say that Biden, as Brenda mentioned, Biden would appeal to a lot of Republicans.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I don't think so. And I would reassure Brenda that I think Trump could and probably would defeat Biden. But Biden, of course, enters the race without the baggage of Hillary. And it's kind of funny. You can't go around making a virtue of honesty. Honesty is just the absence of dishonesty. But when you're running against Hillary, you can make a virtue of honesty because she is so dishonest by comparison. But still, I don't think that's going to be enough to catapult Biden. First of all, the vice president always has the problem that he always looks second best. He always looks like the supportive character, never the star. Biden is very old. This is the fourth time, it would be the fourth time, I think, that he's run for president. And he's to the left of Obama, even. He was against killing Osama bin Laden. He thought that was too risky. And I think that you're going to find a lot of negatives on him when he comes out. But it's a long way to there. What has to happen first is Hillary has to lose in California. She has to have a negative Benghazi report, a negative FBI report. Polls have to come out showing Trump ahead. Polls have to come out showing Biden ahead of Trump. And put all that together, and you might then have a spontaneous combustion among the superdelegates that could deny Hillary the first ballot nomination.
You know, you're setting up what's so interesting about this, Dick. We thought it was going to happen in Cleveland with the Republicans. Instead, it looks like Philadelphia for the Democrats. Dick Morris, thank you very much. And when we come back, the continuing battle of the border.